Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're looking at Rivian and Apple. I've spoken about this before, a possible Apple and Rivian collaboration or partnership. I've also touched on the topic of Apple potentially buying Rivian. I said previously that Rivian as an EV company would be perfect for Apple. They suit the Apple ecosystem and the Apple brand almost perfectly, almost too perfect in fact. So let's look into this report of a possible Apple and Rivian partnership. First of all, Rivian is scheduled to report its Q1 results after the closing bell, while Apple is due to hold its first hardware launch event for the year. Apple ditches its self-driving car project amidst its focus on generative AI. Now, if I'm being completely honest, I'm making this video after Apple has already unveiled their new product at their new launch event. And this is after market is closed as well. After Apple is ditching its electric car brand, after Apple is ditching its electric car plans, Apple could be rethinking interests in segments such as EV. If rumors are anything to go by, a report said late Monday that Cupertino was in talk to forge a partnership with Rivian Automotive Inc. Apple is assessing the possibilities of teaming up with a certain US EV startup known as Rivian. So here's what the report says. Apple is assessing the possibilities of teaming up with a certain US EV startup, and Rivian is a likely candidate. This was said in Digitime in a paywall article by 9 to 5 Mac reported. And this is that article, if I'm being completely honest. This is what I remember seeing exploding on the internet with excitement, especially from the Rivian fan base. Apple mulling potential partnership with Rivian. The reports do say that there is a speculations among supply chain that Apple is investigating teaming up with an EV startup. So it looks like it's still not entirely confirmed, but who else could it be? It's definitely not Canoo, it's not Tesla. Rivian would most likely be the appropriate candidate. Digitime suggests that Apple could take its 10 years of EV and automotive driving research and team up with another company instead of making its own cars. How exactly would this partnership work? If I'm being completely honest, it would sound as if Apple would like the Apple CarPlay to be integrated with Rivian. Rivian do not use Apple CarPlay. Not to mention, Apple has self-driving technology. They have a lot of research that they've been building on. They could easily hand this over to Rivian depending on the price. And Apple is not the kind of company to sell their own technology or their own research. An acquisition is usually the way Apple does things. Instead of just starting their own company, why not just buy a company that's already perfectly made? It's Rivian. I would love for Apple to buy Rivian because Rivian would indeed do very well with the Apple funding. But the problem is, will Rivian be allowed to be its own company? I think Rivian has proven that they can maintain a very clean portfolio, a very clean personality, very professional, very customer-focused behavior and activities. It's very much an Apple-like company. I think the two will go very well together. The difference is that Apple probably wants a lot more control and Rivian wants as little control from other companies as possible. Rivian wants as much independence as possible. So a possible acquisition is very difficult in a clean way unless there's a hostile takeover. Neither company really wants to be involved in a hostile takeover, so perhaps the partnership is the more likely scenario, I would say. Now, there's no other details provided in the Digitech report. It's unclear what a partnership between Apple and Rivian would look like, or whether Rivian would even be interested in such an arrangement. Still, at least based on Digitime's supply chain sources, it's something Apple is studying. And I quote, "As much as I'd love to see a partnership between Apple and Rivian, I'm choosing not to get my hopes up about this one." The report is scarce on detail, and it sounds as if it's based purely on speculations amongst Apple's suppliers. I'd wait for something more concrete before getting too excited. Perhaps more importantly, Apple could provide Rivian with some crucial cash as the company enters the challenging process of ramping up production of its new R2, R3, and R3X cars. Do you think Apple should team up with Rivian? What kind of collaboration could Apple have in mind? And that's a really good question. This is the same question I'm pretty much asking. What collaboration do you think Apple might have in mind? And I personally think Apple would like the Apple CarPlay to be on Rivian's. Apple would probably want their technology to be integrated into Rivian. Apple perhaps want to own a percentage of Rivian. Instead of owning the company outright completely, they perhaps just want to own a percentage. And Rivian already has some good infrastructure and they're building up more. With a possible partnership such as this, meaning that Apple perhaps will own 10, 20, 30% of Rivian, it could get them a say on the board. This would allow Apple to invest in the company more and more and to gain more control over the company and to gain more ownership. Because anything that Apple does, they've studied it. They've studied it a lot and they've made sure that it's the right decision before they made the decision. They've studied it like 10 times to make sure it's the perfect decision before even making that decision. And it really sounds like this decision is really, it's in the rumor stage, so meaning that it's only conversations that are being held at the moment. Now, I remember when there was a Mercedes and a Rivian partnership, not too long ago, in fact, like maybe 2 years ago now. And that didn't last very long. In fact, it was announced as a big deal, and it was apparently for Rivian and Mercedes to jointly build electric vehicles, delivery vans together. And I think it quickly fell through because Rivian already builds delivery vehicles that are electric, and Mercedes, I think they do the same thing as well to a certain extent. So, in what universe do they really need each other? Apart from the fact that Rivian could benefit from Mercedes' strategic location in such as the European continent or European region, Mercedes, on the other hand, could benefit from Rivian being a US business or being based in the US. They could perhaps benefit in those ways. But if I'm being completely honest, it was quite limited for Mercedes and for Rivian, which is probably why the deal fell apart. They didn't really need each other. What Rivian really needed was more funding. And what Mercedes perhaps needed was probably a fresh input. Because I'm guessing Mercedes has perhaps seen the appeal that have taken the market by Rivian. And I'm guessing Rivian has seen the infrastructure of Mercedes, thinking to themselves, this might be a good partnership. Now, with Apple, it's a completely different story. Apple is not in the car business and they desperately wanted to get in the electric vehicle market specific. That's why they've been developing self-driving technology for over a decade. And it kind of reminds me of the Google driving car. You remember the Google car concept that they did? And they pretty much ended that project very soon after. And imagine if Google had stick with that project, kept on making electric vehicles and developing them. For anyone who don't know what I'm talking about this Google car, the Google self-driving car. This project came out a long time ago, over a decade now. I think I was still in college at the time, and to be honest, back then, times were a lot simpler. And at the time, it really seemed like a promising project, if I'm being completely honest. But typical of Google is that they gave up, and often they gave up on things that have proven to be a big deal later in the future. They gave up on electric vehicles. It's a big deal right now. Everyone's trying to get in this market. And the amazing thing is that Google would have been right there with Tesla. They have the funding to beat Tesla. They would have probably beaten Tesla, which is crazy to think about. The other crazy thing is that Apple had an opportunity to buy Tesla. They probably don't want to make the same mistake with Rivian. And they probably want to buy Rivian, but I think there's probably some complications. I personally think perhaps Rivian do not want to be sold to Apple because they want to remain their own company. So Apple instead says, okay, what about a partnership? A possible partnership. Since we're not making electric vehicles anymore, let's just think about a partnership that can bring us closer together. What's the best way to benefit each other? Apple wants their technology in an electric vehicle, which will make the vehicle a default Apple device. Now, Rivian needs more funding, and Apple has this funding. And to be honest, when you put it that way, it makes a lot more sense why these companies would invest in each other. What's another project that Google gave up on? Oh, Google Glasses. Significantly ahead of their time. I remember watching those videos 2012, 2013. The technology was incredible. And the project sort of just disappeared. And now everyone is trying to make AI, VR, glasses. AI technology is the biggest thing right now. And VR and AR techs and headsets, they're some of the biggest things on the market right now. Even though Apple is struggling to sell these devices, it is still proven that if you can offer them at a cheaper price point, there is certainly a developing market. The market isn't perfectly ready yet, but 10 years ago, the market was nowhere. And now you actually have people buying these devices that are readily interested. The technology is there. Now it's just making it cheaper. You know what? Headsets, AR and VR headsets, where they are right now is very similar to where electric car was in 2013 and 14. They were incredibly expensive, those Teslas, the Model S and the Model X, incredibly expensive. It took a long time for Tesla to be confident in that technology that they were able to develop the Model 3 and Model Y. And those have proven to be even more popular with customers. In fact, the Model Y is the most popular vehicles because it's so affordable and it has the room for a family-sized vehicle. So offering your technology at a cheaper price point, it definitely gets more buyers. Apple selling this device for over $3,000. Who's going to buy it? And who's going to buy it for their kids? It's so easy to break. The entire thing is glass. It's so easy to break. When you think about it, if Apple can offer a cheaper technology with similar levels of intelligence, they'll definitely sell a lot more. And I think 1,000 is the perfect price point. Probably 1,500 is more reasonable than $3,000. And I think Apple should keep the Vision Pro at $3,000. That's their main headset. They can continue to improve it. That's the expensive thing. That's their Tesla Model S. Now they need to make a Tesla Model Y, a more affordable version. And eventually they're going to have to make a more affordable version for around $700 or $800 or $600. I'm just being logical here. If you intend for the everyday person to have this device, and let's just say that the device is more valuable in that person's hand because of advertisements, advertisement is such a big thing. To think that the device is more valuable in my hands, basically, Apple, you want to give away these devices for free. And I know I'm getting off topic. I know this conversation is about Rivian and Apple. But in order to understand a possible partnership, you must understand why these brands will benefit from each other. We see the way our Apple is struggling, and we've seen that they gave up on their electric cars and they're focusing more on AI and research. Rivian can provide them with that research data. Rivian can run the Apple technology and just provide Apple with research information. That's what Apple needs Rivian for. It's just research. Apple probably doesn't really want a car right now because they could just buy Rivian whenever they want at a hostile takeover, even though they'd like to avoid that. But thinking logically, what Apple really wants is data, research. They're investing so much into AI, and guess what? Self-driving technology is artificial intelligence. It's machine learning. It is AI. Apple needs this in a car. Whether it's Rivian, they're going to find another company to invest in and get their technology in that car because they're now going fully in on AI. And if you don't believe me, let's look at their recent announcement. Apple has unveiled outrageously powerful chip for AI in the latest iPad. This was today. Just like an hour or 2 hours ago, they unveiled their new iPad, which is incredibly thin, and the M4 chip. Incredible. And their main focus is AI. And of course, Apple probably didn't use the word AI, but what they usually say is machine learning, which is the exact same thing. This is how they could benefit strategically. And if we're looking at some of the top tech companies in the world right now, the Apple stock is probably one of the worst performer in recent months. And we're looking at times since August, September, October. November was particularly bad. December started a little bit of recovery, but since January, it's been tapering off. And it's only recently that they've looked like they might recover. So Apple has seen a lot of pullback, which is really strange because Amazon, Microsoft, Alphabet, they're all going the opposite way. They're all going up. And it's very unusual because Apple is usually the one who leads the pack. Now they're being led by Amazon and Microsoft and Alphabet, which is incredible to think about. Keep in mind, right now, Apple has one of the biggest lawsuits on their hands with the Justice Department, I think it is. I could be wrong. The US government is investigating Apple to see if they're actually a monopoly, and this is huge. This has made a lot of investors question their decision in investing in Apple. And with this latest rumor and revelation that Apple might be looking at an EV company, that EV company being most likely Rivian, the question is, will Rivian be interested in Apple? Which is bizarre to say. Usually, it's like if Apple comes to you, you accept whatever you get and just be thankful. But now it's like, Rivian is like, wait a minute, you need us more than we need you. If there is going to be any partnership, it's going to be an expensive one. And Apple can afford said expensive partnership. And if Rivian really needs funding, Apple is the perfect partner. The problem is, Apple will want access to Rivian data and technology and their in-car infotainment system, which means that the Apple CarPlay will need to be on the Rivian vehicles, in my opinion. And that self-driving AI technology that you're talking about, yeah, Apple is going to want to have that technology in the Rivian, and they're going to want that technology, the data, the research, the R&D. They're going to want that desperately because their main focus right now is AI. They've seen how Google dropped the ball. Google completely failed on AI. They just gave up too soon. Or maybe they just got scared, or maybe they just thought, yeah, no one is going to figure this out just like we just did. Someone did, and they used Google technology to figure it out and beat Google to the punch. So Google is in desperation mode. Apple is in desperation mode to build an AI. Tesla is in desperation mode, and Tesla is the one who's further ahead in AI technology, believe it or not. Tesla has the best self-driving technology. And who operates that? An AI, a machine learning technology. So in my opinion, Tesla is ahead. So it's very interesting to see how this market is changing. And with Apple knowing this, the importance of AI and self-driving technology, and if EVs are the future, well, self-driving technology is the future as well. So why wouldn't Apple want a head start in this area? Why wouldn't they want a partnership or an advantage or a part ownership of a really good American brand such as Rivian, who needs funding right now quite desperately, but they have unlimited potential and they have no controversy. Rivian is a very clean professional company. They have no huge controversy that we have to be worried about. So this is not a loss for Apple. This is perhaps a big win if they can really pull this off. But that's it I've got for this video. I've done my rant, I've given you my opinion. Now I want to hear your opinion. Leave a comment, let me know. Do I make sense? What I'm saying, does it make sense? So, hope you subscribe. Hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to see more. Remember to subscribe to our Substack, our newsletter. The link is in the description. And I'll see you in our next video. Peace.